Well, if you're planning to fly to the U.S. this summer, you might notice fewer flight options.
Visitors are even being told by their home countries to take their vacations and money elsewhere.
A staggering $21 billion has disappeared from America's economy. In March 2025 alone, foreign visitor numbers plummeted by 14%, erasing a year's worth of tourism revenue. Stroll through JFK or LAX today, and you'll hear the sound of suitcase wheels echoing in nearly empty terminals. Over the past year, 10 international airlines have cut their routes, drying up the flow of millions that once poured into hotels and local businesses. Each percentage point drop in travelers drains another $1.8 billion from the economy, triggering layoffs across tour companies, eateries, and ride-sharing services. Stay tuned, because by the end of this report, you'll understand why major players like Qatar Airways, Lufthansa, and Singapore Airlines have quietly removed the U.S. from their flight schedules. The reasons? A triple threat of tariffs, bureaucratic border delays, and a growing perception of safety concerns, turning the U.S. from a tourist haven into a place to avoid. This isn't just a minor hiccup, it's a steep dive toward an industry collapse. Want the full picture? That $21 billion gap widens when you look across the Atlantic. Play Airlines, Iceland's last low-cost carrier serving the U.S., just announced it's pulling out entirely. New York is the first to go on September 1st, followed by Boston on September 15th, and Baltimore, Washington by October 24th. Their exit was like a signal for a broader retreat. Within a month of Play's announcement, arrivals from Northwestern Europe dropped 17%, the first double-digit decline since tourism rebounded post-pandemic. A major hotel chain CEO told Bloomberg that summer bookings from Europe for U.S. vacations are already down 25%. Meanwhile, their global reservations elsewhere are climbing. In other words, hotel beds are filling up in Toronto and Barcelona, while Las Vegas rooms sit empty. Airline strategists admit the numbers don't add up anymore. Tariffs drive up costs for spare parts, border checks add hours of delays, and a single viral video of TSA chaos can kill demand faster than a snowstorm at O'Hare. For carriers like Play, the economics are harsh. A narrow-body jet with 180 seats needs 85% occupancy to break even on a 6-hour flight to Stewart Airport. Fall short by a few rows, and the route loses money. With traveler confidence faltering, the gap between full and empty planes has become a chasm. So, Nordic executives cut their losses, redirecting planes to shorter, tax-friendly routes within Europe. The fallout hits U.S. communities hard. Every lost European visitor wipes out about $1,800 in local spending, from rideshare tips to Broadway tickets, and cuts jobs in hotel kitchens already struggling to stay staffed. Wall Street analysts now warn of a tourism downturn spreading from coastal cities to the heartland as flight networks shrink. Would you endure a 10-hour flight and a 2-hour immigration line? The warning signs grow louder up north. After new tariffs made headlines in March, bookings for Canada-U.S. flights fell by over 70% each month through September 2025, according to OAG flight data. Airlines responded drastically, cutting 320,000 seats from cross-border routes between April and October, the equivalent of parking 8 wide-body jets daily. That capacity didn't disappear, it shifted. WestJet is adding flights to Dublin and Edinburgh, while Air Canada targets sunseekers heading to Spain and the Caribbean. Hotel executives report that rooms once booked by Canadians are now empty, even as their properties elsewhere see record rates. A May Longwoods International poll found 60% of Canadians are less likely to visit the U.S. this year, citing border delays, gun violence concerns, and heated trade war rhetoric. Older travelers, especially those over 50, are the first to look elsewhere, saying the U.S. isn't worth the trouble. Their spending is flowing to Mexico's resorts or Japan's high-speed trains instead. Each redirected family strips roughly $1,800 from U.S. businesses. Analysts warn these losses ripple through supply chains, hitting restaurants, car rentals, and even Broadway productions. When an airline drops a route, TSA hours get cut, airport concessions close early, and taxi lines dwindle. The trade war's impact is now tangible in the empty seats of a turboprop that stays grounded in Toronto. If you're in Toronto or Vancouver, comment below what's stopping you from crossing the border this summer. Europe's major airlines are quietly shifting their planes and profits away from the U.S. On April 29, 2025, Lufthansa CEO Carsten Spar said the airline would have its U.S. capacity growth from 6% to 3%, citing Trump-era tariffs as a demand killer. Those freed-up seats are being redeployed. On April 1st, 2025, schedule update shows Lufthansa upgrading Frankfurt to Seoul and Shanghai routes with fuel-efficient Airbus A350-900S, a clear shift toward Asia's steady business travelers. Competitors are following suit. A late May Financial Times report noted a 2.4% drop in Air France-KLM's transatlantic bookings for the critical May-June period. The airline is moving Boeing 777s to Tokyo and Singapore instead. British Airways is cutting deeper, suspending its Gatwick to New York route from December 12, 2024 to March 25, 2025 due to engine shortages. This canceled over 100 flights during the busy holiday season, redirecting crews to more profitable routes in Asia and the Gulf. Each rerouted plane widens the revenue gap in the U.S. A Frankfurt to Seoul flight generates about $80,000 in daily ticket sales, money that once supported U.S. hotels, rideshares, and Broadway theaters, but now flows to Seoul's cafes. Bernstein analysts warn that if Europe's carriers keep shifting east, the U.S. could lose 1 million high-spending visitors annually, costing local economies another $1.8 billion. The Pacific tells a grimmer tale. On October 24, 2025, Jetstar will operate its final Sydney to Honolulu flight, ending a 19-year route and exiting U.S. airspace entirely. Hawaii's hotels, which relied on nearly 270 Australian passengers per flight, are left scrambling. Those Boeing 787s are now flying to Seoul and Bangkok, where airport fees are lower and trade war surcharges don't apply. Jetstar's June 17, 2025 schedule update added 10 weekly Sydney-Seoul round trips, offering 100,000 new seats aimed at K-pop fans and duty-free shoppers. Skyscanner's 2025 Horizons report shows a 47% surge in Australian searches for Seoul, the fastest-growing long-haul destination. Travel agents point to a double hit: jet fuel costs inflated by Washington's 50% copper tariffs and hotel surcharges tied to a stronger U.S. dollar. Families who once vacationed in Waikiki now find 2 weeks in Busan or Phuket cost the same and avoids U.S. border hurdles. Singapore Airlines, reading the same data, cut its Singapore-Seattle and Manchester-Houston routes in April 2025, signaling that high-value corporate travelers are now east of the dateline. Executives cite soaring U.S. handling costs, redirecting A350s to 4-hour flights to Ho Chi Minh City that yield better profits with less fuel. The ripple effect hits U.S. airports. Honolulu International projects a 12% revenue drop this winter. Seattle-Tacoma is reassigning customs officers to Miami, and LA Uber drivers report 40-minute waits between airport pickups, nearly double last summer's average. In short, tariffs and traveler unease are redirecting the Pacific flight path. Airlines follow profits, and right now, those lie in Incheon's duty-free shops, not LAX terminals. So, for your next big trip, what's it going to be? Tokyo's sushi trains or LA's taco trucks? Back home, the U.S. flight map is shrinking faster than its tourist crowds. JetBlue, hit by 3 consecutive and profitable quarters, has exited 15 cities and cut over 50 routes to save cash, leaving parts of the Southeast and Midwest without a single JetBlue flight. United is taking similar steps, announcing on April 15, 2025, that it will reduce domestic capacity by 4% starting in Q3 and retire 21 older planes early. The seats cut in Cleveland and Denver are being reassigned to premium routes like Paris and Sao Paulo, where passengers still pay for life flatbeds. Smaller communities are hit even harder. In May, the White House budget proposal slashed $38 million, over half, from the Essential Air Service, which funds flights to rural towns from Montana to Mississippi. Airport directors warn that if Congress approves the cut, dozens of communities could lose their last commercial flights. Regional airlines often fill gaps left by major carriers, but only with federal support. Without it, a ticket from Wolf Point, Montana, to Billings could jump from $89 to $400 overnight, if it's available at all. Jobs disappear next. Fewer routes mean fewer TSA shifts, closed rental car desks, and diners that once fed morning flight crews now facing foreclosure. This ripples into agriculture, healthcare access, and even college sports recruiting, turning an airline schedule change into a slow economic bleed. Governors talk about emergency grants, but state budgets are already strained by wildfires and Medicaid costs. So, the question remains, can any state afford to fund rural air service before small-town airports go dark? Share your thoughts in the comments, as the next Capitol Hill budget vote could decide whether your local airport stays open or gets shuttered. From Northern Europe's skies to the Midwest prairies, the story is the same. Airlines are leaving, terminals are quiet, and a $21 billion tourism industry stalls during peak season. Tariffs raise costs for parts, visa lines drag, and safety concerns dominate headlines. 10 airlines have already removed their logos from U.S. departure boards, with more on the way. Canadian planes now fly to Dublin, Lufthansa's to Seoul, Jetstar's to Bangkok, while rural Montana faces empty runways. If Washington doesn't ease trade tensions, simplify entry processes, and invest in airport security, the U.S. flight network will keep unraveling. But there's a chance to turn it around. Streamlined visas, efficient terminals, and a modernized supply chain could make the U.S. a global travel hub again. So, here's the big question. How long until the U.S. regains its status as the top travel destination? 5 years? 10? Or is the opportunity gone? Share your prediction in the comments. Your voice could be the key to this debate.